Hey there, Will Rice with the Tips team, here to share 5 tips to get your Google Classroom ready for summer. The first thing you're going to want to do is take a few minutes to declutter your classes page. Upon logging into Google Classroom, you will be presented with all of the classes that you are either teaching or a student in. You can tell the difference as classes that have a profile picture are classes that you are a student in. If there's a class that no longer applies to you, for example, perhaps you were in a class with other teachers as a staff group in the past, or you were in a demo meet that didn't turn out as something you needed, such as this April 16th demo meet, you can either archive the class and get it ready to be deleted at a future date, or in the case of a class you're a student in, you can simply unenroll from the class. Do note that unenrolling from a class means you can only get back into that class upon invitation from one of the co-teachers in the class or from having the class code shared with you. Before you go ahead and archive anything, double check that they're all co-teachers and maybe even the owner of the class are aware that you're doing this, as it will archive this for all co-teachers and students in a class. In general, these items are not deleted immediately, and you can find them by clicking on the 3 lines in the top left corner and scrolling down and looking under your archived classes, where classes can be deleted, moved, or restored so that you can continue to use them just as they were before. We'll talk more about archiving classes in a few minutes. The second tip is to prepare the classwork in a class that as you head into the summer. One of the things you may want to do is revisit assignments that you've provided to the students and ensure that they've been returned to the student even if they've not been graded. The reason for this is that by returning it to the student, you will provide the student with direct edit access to the documents again. This means that they can go ahead and use these documents any way they would like in the future, and you won't be the owner. By leaving them as submitted documents, students will only have comment and suggestion access and may request edit access at some point in the future. So if you haven't done that yet, you may want to go through and return those assignments to the students. While you're in here, you may find some old draft items that you never used, or maybe that were just tests. You would likely want to remove these now so that you don't have to have them in a class later on when you go to reuse items. The third tip is organizing the content so that you are ready to reuse it in the future. There's a couple of things you might want to do. In this case, you may want to reorganize the content so that it makes sense for you to reuse as a teacher, not for the students. In this case, I have a section called Old Assignments that I used to give students an idea when assignments no longer needed to be reviewed, so that I could keep them here, for example, at the bottom of the screen, so they wouldn't have to scroll as much. However, as a teacher, I would likely want this item to be in a topic that makes more sense for me, such as science. In this case, I can create a topic, call it science, and drag and drop any applicable assignments or coursework into that section. Any topics that you no longer need, you can go ahead and delete. This will make finding content as you go to reuse classes easier in the future. A second item you may want to deal with while you're here in this classroom that you're planning on archiving, but for reuse, is to click on the cog. And if you intend to use a similar class name next year, you may want to add an appendix to this name, something such as the year, or anything else that will let you know that this is an archived version of the class or an old version of the class. In this case, when you're editing class details, don't forget to click Save when you're done. Once you've cleaned up your classes page, returned any assignments to students, deleted any drafts or scheduled items that you will not want to reuse, and you've organized your content for reuse, we can start talking about how to take this class and archive it. It's important that if you're archiving a class, you do check with the teachers who are co-teachers in that class to allow them to know that it will be disappearing from their classes screen and moving to archived. This is an important step, and we recommend archiving classes and not reusing them for several reasons. The first reason is an archived class is accessible to the co-teachers and students in that class. It gives them an accurate record of what they did in your class and any conversations and private comments that you might have had. Removing students from a class or deleting classes removes those private comments and may also have other implications based on how you shared the folders, if you did that manually while using the classroom. Archiving a class allows the students and you to have that snapshot of what was done in the class throughout the year, but also allows you to bring content forward and reuse it in other classes in the future. Reusing a class would also leave all of the assignments with their due dates live in that class, and all students would have access to all of the content if you bring new students into that class. Finally, students that have overdue items or missing items in a classroom will continue to see that in their Guardian Summary emails, as well as in their to-do list, unless they unenroll themselves from the class. However, moving a classroom and archiving it, so like this, clicking on the 3 dots and selecting Archive, does not indicate that those assignments weren't overdue, but removes them from their to-do list so they are not starting the year with overdue items from a previous school year. The 5th tip, and probably the most important, is that as you head into the spring and you decide on how you're going to archive, delete, or otherwise deal with your Google Classrooms over the summer, that you communicate this to your students and co-teachers so that they know if they will be losing access, if it will be moving to the archived folder so they'll know to look there, or if they will simply no longer have access to some of the materials. This is an important piece to share so that there are no surprises for staff and students in your school. That's it. Hope these 5 tips will help you get ready for summer with your Google Classroom and get you even more prepared for the fall.